Greetings, nerds and geeks, whether you say Yo Joe or Cobra. Welcome to the greatest podcast this side of Eternia or Cybertron. I am your host, Chad, and in fact, He-Man is the best toy line ever because it is Eternia. And with us today is Wes, our standard co-host. Go ahead, Wes.
Hey guys, and I have to disagree because we all know that G.I. Joe rocked. But on a fun note, we're talking toys today, and Chad and I have got a special guest with us, good friend of ours. Chad, you've known him a lot
Since
longer
the
than I
third
have.
grade. As a matter of fact, he's been dealing with my idiot self since the third grade. Ladies and
He's only
gentlemen.
had to put up with me since high school, but our buddy Terrance is with us today. And Terrance, thanks for being on the show, bud.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Since we're going to talk about toys, I'm a collector of all things that interest me. Toys, comics, statues, autographs, pictures. Unfortunately, anything that interests me, I just I start collecting it.
He is, in fact, our resident toy expert among the nerdy old men that gather around this table and play D&D and do all the other junk that we do. He is our toy expert and the guy that I call when I have questions. So what are you collecting right now that you think modern toy wise is the best stuff out right now there, Terrance?
I think right now, Hasbro's really, bringing it home with the Marvel Legends lines they're doing, and the GI Joe Classified. I had my doubts on the Classified line. I'm still not, 100% happy with the color schemes they've selected. I would rather a little more classic '80s. But I'm glad that they're, hitting the market and they're doing well.
Yeah, I saw a thing and talking about the classic or the classified line. I saw that they kicked out on Big Bad Toy Stores a pre-order for some off-brand company that makes gear for those, and it had like gung ho's retro gear that you could like replace the Hasbro stuff with. So maybe there's gonna be a secondary market for that.
There is. Well, I just bought the kaiju
Oh, that's
that
cool.
is like 2 feet tall. From the GI Joe movie. It's the big robot. That looks like a cobra.
That's good. Maybe we'll put a link to that where you bought that in
Sure,
the
sure.
in our description and such.
It was the guy that makes it's on Facebook. And you had to order it through Facebook, and they only made 350 of them. So it's one of these custom things that somebody made, and decided to produce it. I like third party, products, especially on the Transformers side. Hasbro, Takara really only makes a select few Transformers, so they've kind of let the third party market go a little crazy with making their own figures. I think the only restriction that they've had on the third party is they can't actually put the Autobot or Decepticon logos on the third party Transformers.
Right, but you could probably get those logos and put those on there yourself, though, couldn't you?
You can, you can. I got the third party Omega Supreme, which is huge. And then another third-party vendor makes a plate that you stick in his chest that has the Autobot logo on it.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and I've seen your collection of modern Transformers there at your house, where you got them up on the wall. It's impressive as all get out. Some of them are pretty complicated to transform, though, right?
Oh yeah, I mean probably the worst is the third-party Scorponok. I sit down with my son and we transformed it one time, and we probably will never do that again.
It's too
Yeah,
frustrating.
I remember you telling me that being a very aggravating process. That took quite a while, didn't it?
Yeah, it was. We spent like at least over an hour running it through the different modes, and then after we got it to the robot, I'm like, that's where it'll stay.
We're done. My hands hurt, and I'm finished. The modern stuff. I like some modern stuff too. The GI Joe classified guys, and for some reason I felt like I had to open those, and I know that cringes you out, Terrance, for doing that, but it's the only ones I open, and
Well,
I've got them displayed. And the thing about those, the reason I like it is they pose so well because they've got a place for everything. Every knife, every gun, every weapon has got a place on it to go, which is really cool. So I've got
all right.
those displayed, and I like those a lot.
Yeah, with Transformers, I tend to open my Transformers. There's a lot of tactile feel
Yes.
that I get the enjoyment out of opening those guys up and going through the transformations. As for My GI Joes, Star Wars. I tend not to open the new ones of those because I really don't have places to put them.
Well, that's true. The only other modern thing that I buy that I open is those Mondo, the 12-inch He-Man Master of the Universe guys that I've got, and I know you guys have seen those when you've been over here.
Those are very nice.
They
You've
just
got a really nice
I love
collection
those,
of
man.
those.
I absolutely freaking love those. Darn them for continuing to produce them, but I think they're amazing. It's like
Oh yeah, once the scale starts going up,
oh yeah,
the level of detail becomes so much better. So
It's
when you go from the
ridiculous.
3 3/4 inch GI Joes to the 6 inch, the detail's better. When you go from the 6 inch to the statues, the detail is phenomenal.
Right. So yeah, I like those, and then the new Masters of the Universe line, the Origins. I've only bought He-Man and Skeletor and Battle Cat. I pre-ordered Scareglow just because I like the character. The rest of them I'm probably not going to get. I think they're cool, but I just have absolutely nowhere to put them.
Yeah.
I just can't display those. Now I have bought all of the Masters of the WWE universe just because I think it's a cool freaking crossover, and they're hilarious. And I just think that I don't know why I think they're cool. I mean, the Undertaker as Scareglow I think is just hilarious, and I don't know why I think they're cool.
It's a neat looking line. It came out of nowhere.
Yeah. I was like, holy crap, what's this?
It's like, hey, we have WWE licenses, we have the Mattel license. Let's mix them up.
That's right. But we do some of that stuff with some of the new, the new toys. But it all started for us back in the day with the vintage stuff. Wes, hark back those many eons ago when you were a little lad, and what were you playing with? What was like the best toy that you ever had as a kid that you think of toy wise?
The best,
or something that you just really liked, man. What was your
Optimus
thing?
Prime comes to mind because that was just one of the coolest we used to have. I mean, he was a truck. It had the rig was a battle platform, and then when you don't understand why some of it you're like, well, this doesn't really make sense. But
It doesn't have to make sense. By golly, it's an action figure.
Well, when you find out that in Japan that Transformers were two different lines, and they brought them together and made an American line of toys, and that they were originally supposed to be basically mech suits.
Right.
So you
were a Transformer kid, because Terrance, were you a Transformer kid, or did that develop as you got
I had
older?
a handful. No, I had a handful of Transformers. I have some
when you
that.
say Transformer kid, I only had like 4.
Right.
It's like,
Unfortunately, I had a lot of toys when I was a child too. So, I did have a good handful of Transformers. Basically the core line.
Right.
And then when I see some of the modern figures they do, I'm like, oh yeah, I had that original figure when I was a child.
Let me tell you, I got an interesting vintage Transformers story here, okay? So I had a bunch, or I didn't have a bunch, I had a few, right? Maybe 8 or 10 of them. But, the Megatron gun and the Optimus Prime, the classic ones, right? So I had them, and my dad comes home one day and is like, hey, there's this guy at work whose son wants Transformers for Christmas because he found an old Sears catalog. Well, they didn't make them at the time, okay? And he was like, would you consider selling them? And I was like, I really want Super Mario Brothers 3. I really want that game because what was the name of that movie where they played it in the Nintendo Championship?
Oh, The Wizard.
The Wizard. I'd seen The Wizard. I was like, I gotta have this freaking game, man. All right, these are just in a box. I'm gonna sell them. Worst deal ever.
Of course.
Worst deal ever because I sold them and I bought that game. Worst deal ever. I have no idea where the game is, but I know what I wish I still had. The freaking Transformers.
You know what I wish I still had?
I bet I know what it is.
Oh, it's probably, the biggest toy I had as a child, the flag.
That's right, because you are one of those few people I know. I know 3 people that had the flag.
I knew 2 that had the flag.
Well, I only knew 1 as a kid. The other 2 I've met as an adult.
And as a toy, though, it is an empty shell. It is a fake ship. I mean, it's neat to have, but it really, play value, it was pretty low.
Right. And since we're talking about the flag, let's go into a little bit of G.I. Joe stuff, because I know, Terrance, that you played Joe's because we played Joe's sort of together. So I know
G.I.
how that
Joe.
is.
So many G.I. Joes I wish I had back.
You you collect some vintage Joes now, though, Terrence, don't you? That's kind
Oh
of
yeah,
that's kind of like the
yeah.
vintage thing you do, right?
So yeah, since most of my vintage stuff was gone, either I'd sold it or mom sold it or it just got lost. I kind of got into occasionally purchasing some old Joes because it really it comes back to that tactile feel to hold toys you used to have
Yes.
and get those memories. And so I picked up a lot, yard sales, marketplace, different toy shows, and then Alex and I will sit and restore them, because a lot of them are dirty,
Yes.
discolored. Stickers are gone, so we will, scrub them down, clean them. There's a couple of third-party places that make replacement stickers.
Yes, that's
And
awesome.
so you can make it almost look brand new. And so doing this, I've ended up with two Terradromes. I've got one Defiant, which is about 98% complete now.
Now that's the space shuttle one, right? That's like
That's the space
excessively
shuttle.
heavy.
It's excessively heavy. It's a horrible toy. I mean, the way they made it. The wheels on it cannot support the entire weight of the shuttle that sits on top of it. And if you put everything together and try to move it, the wheels are connected with pegs. The pegs will shear off.
Right.
And so the
That's awful.
wheels alone with intact pegs, are like anywhere from 50 to $100. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, that's
Jeez.
one of the things I think is cool is like you had posted like when you would get parts and fixing, and the fact that you actually brought that toy back,
Oh
I
yeah,
thought
it's
was really
awesome to
cool.
see them, the color come back to them, when you sit and, fix the discoloration and something that's, almost yellow, from being, that was originally white is, turns back to being solid white. It's pretty amazing.
Well,
Now
the
that's a pretty easy trick to fix. You care share some secrets on that?
Okay, so let me look this up because it is a salon product. So Salon Care Volume 40. You can get it at like Sally's. But the key is that it's got a lot of peroxide in it. And so you want to mix the Salon Care 40 with some OxyClean in a cup and kind of let it sit for a little bit. It'll kind of foam up. And I like using a paintbrush to paint that on the toys. If it's something really big. Otherwise, if it's something small, you can put it in like a sandwich bag. But the key is leaving it in the sunlight. So you kind of coat it with this mixture and let it sit in the sunlight for until the mixture starts drying. You don't want it to dry on there, and then wash it off and rinse and repeat.
now is that just for the white part?
It's going to give anything that's discolored. It can bring it back. White is by far going to be the best. The issue is chemical leaching. The flame retardants that they put in all the toys in the 80s sort of leach to the surface.
Ah,
And
okay.
so this chemical process will help push those back into the plastic so the color will come back.
Ah, see, I didn't know how that worked. I thought it like cleaned the yellow
Yeah.
off.
Now,
That's what I did.
if you have something, we'll say like a vintage Storm Shadow, and you don't want to effectively kind of bleach his black sash, what you can do is coat it with like Vaseline, and then put the mixture on top of that. That way it doesn't, you kind of protected what's colored.
Kind of pushes it
Uh,
off.
yeah, because there are certain colors it will bleach if you leave it on there too long.
So that's how
So
you got all those old clean. Because I've been over there and it's impressive. I love those old, especially the big sets that you've got going on that you've cleaned up. Man, they look so
yeah,
good. I
and
love
you can
them.
get different levels of that Salon 40. Most of the time, I think I use a 20. I've recently picked up a 40 because my Terradrome, after hours and hours of treatment with the 20, still is a little discolored. So I'm gonna, make another pass with the 40.
That's cool. You know, Joes were a big thing for me too as a kid because I remember I had a bunch and luckily my mom kind of pack ratted that stuff away. So I found like the Boxo figures that every time you pick one up they fall apart. But discovering that people produce the O-rings and you can replace those suckers. Now you've probably done that, right, Terrence? Did you replace some
Oh
of the
yeah,
O-rings?
if
My
you can
God,
get
it
the
makes it like
O-rings.
it's a brand new
Oh, brand new.
toy.
I've seen people where we've picked them up at like yard sales and stuff. People have used the little rubber bands that use on braces.
Right.
We found that inside of them as a replacement for an O-ring.
Yeah, but those hard rubber O-rings that
Oh
people
yeah,
use,
and
man,
you can
it's
go to
like
the you can go
it's
to
like
the
a
hardware store and pick them up.
brand new toy, man. It's like amazing. But and some of the ones I had have still got dirt on them because back behind my parents' house, there used to be a bunch of trees over on this hillside, and I always had the Sky Striker, the F-14, right? Isn't that what that's
Yeah,
called? Sky Striker? Yeah.
yep, Sky Striker.
And it was like, I guess because my imagination wasn't quite that great, but I had like the same rescue mission that happened like every day. I'd crashed this Sky Striker in one of the trees, and I had to take the bridge layer out there, and go across the little ditch and rescue the pilot while Cobra was trying to attack him. That was kind of like my
I
daily
always had
thing.
to rescue everybody with the snowcat. That was one that I had.
So
The Snowcat was
Wes's
awesome.
house was always in the Arctic, is what he's
Yeah.
saying.
That was the only. I had like the snowcat, but I remember for Christmas, my mom had ordered the cardboard Cobra silo.
Oh
it
my
came,
goodness.
it came with Cobra Commander, a Cobra officer, and a Cobra trooper. And
Now here, do you want me? I'm going to break your heart real quick. If you still had that in the box, you could easily get $1,000 for it.
yeah, I've still got the original file cards for all
Oh,
the
that's good.
GI Joes I had except for Destro, and I
That's
got
cool.
Destro, and he was so cool because he was the newest one, and I'd actually cut the Destro figure out on the front, which I'm not thinking destroyed the file card on the back. But they're all missing the flag points because I
Well,
cut
of
the flag
course.
points off
Well, obviously.
to send in
I mean,
to get the
you
little rovers.
Yeah, or the Refrigerator Perry. I've got him, which
Did not
is
get
probably
that one.
the worst GI Joe figure of all time. But I mean, it's cool.
He's swinging a football,
He's
man.
swinging a
On
football.
Well, I
chain.
mean, you got to think about it. We don't have, in the 80s, we don't have the internet. It's hard for the producers to connect with their audience. So I mean, I think that was a great idea of the mail-in.
Yeah, and back in the day, they did that kind of stuff, which was so freaking cool. I love that. But you're talking about back then. I remember it. I remember when at least I kind of stopped collecting toys for a while as a kid. Right prior to that, I remember going to the old Kmart, and I bought you, Terrance, a Storm Shadow for Christmas. Did I not?
That's right.
And
I
you
think that
still
was in
have
middle
it.
school. I still
Yes,
have it.
You still have it because we took a picture together
right.
with it a few years ago, and that was so
That's right.
cool, man. That was the days.
Now, that was about the only thing that survived was my G.I. Joe figures because they were hidden in a shoebox. And all this, the last time we actually used, I had used my GI Joes was in high school. We made Jason Peace and I made a video for English,
Yes.
and we basically turned them into puppets and had strings on them and made tinfoil armor and made a video and then set a lot of them on fire.
Yeah. Now wasn't this the Trojan Horse video?
This was the Trojan Horse
Yes.
video.
Yeah, and
The
just a
fiery
backstory.
hand of peace.
Right. Just a backstory. If you guys have listened to the other podcasts, the last one we actually talked about our Highlander video that we did. So we were amateur, really awful B team video producers back.
We
in high
weren't
school.
even
So
B-team.
this is kind of where this flaming thing. So how did that go there, Terrance?
So we used cardboard to make the city of Troy. It covered basically an entire carport. We colored it with Sharpie markers and pretty much made it to scale with the GI Joes. We made a lot of little props. We dressed up a lot of the Joes. We made a cardboard Trojan horse. And then we used an old kind of what were the old Super 8 camcorders that used the little tapes. I don't even remember because I mean you got to remember we don't really have a lot of options to make videos back then.
Well, no, cell phones were in a bag.
Yeah,
if you had one.
Yeah, and so we took and there was no editing really. So we actually shot it
You had
all
to
as one
stop the
could
video.
stop and do it. We almost there's a couple of scenes there where we almost caught the carport on fire. The
That goes
flames
back to
got
that
pretty
fiery
out of
hand of
control.
Jason.
Yeah, because we were actually using like hairspray or anything that was flammable to squirt everything. Which was funny also is my mom had put water in a hairspray bottle, and so in one hand we're putting out fire, and the other hand we're increasing the fire, and we didn't know that at the time.
Yes, yeah, and God love your mother. I will forever consider her sort of a quasi second mother to me, and I can never get full forgiveness for the hell that we put your mother through as a
Actually,
kid.
Terrance, I'd actually ran into your mom at the grocery store the other day, and I still call her mom, because she
Oh
put up
yeah.
with all of us.
But
Well,
we're glad that you didn't burn the carport down
Yeah,
Here's-
right
I mean,
then.
because
I
she probably
mean,
wouldn't let us come back after that.
I would say the best memory I have with mom reacting to everybody coming to the house is when she would hide food.
Yes.
She would hide food in the trash can. We had a spare trash can that didn't have trash in it, but she would hide like all the snacks in that trash can.
Well, it's
You got anything
you
to
had
eat? No.
you had a bunch of buddies that were all football players, and we'd
Oh
come over
yeah,
there and eat everything.
yeah. I mean, and they would just, we'd sit there and goof off all day long. I mean, it was great.
But so luckily you didn't melt all of your Joes, because then you were able to at least retain the figures.
Yeah, we did, retain a couple of those, and I was able to get them out. Now, unfortunately, we talked about earlier, the O-rings were pretty much deteriorated in most of them. So as soon as my son got them out and started, playing with them, they all started falling apart.
But Joes are kind of a timeless toy. I like them a lot, and I've fixed mine up, but I do have some vehicles up there that I haven't really done anything with, because I need some more Detloff cabinets from freaking IKEA if they'll ever get them in stock, so I can drive down there and get them in Atlanta. But that I love my Masters of the Universe, and I do display those up there. And I was a He-Man kid, man. I liked those figures.
Well, I think we all were.
I don't know
I mean,
why, man, but I
He-Man was
love those
cool.
freaking figures, and I'm down to needing about 25, because I collect them in open box. I need about 25 of them to have all of them now, but those are like the ones that are really hard to get. But I guess I think every boy got.
Oh
into
yeah,
He-Man
we
a
got
little bit.
He-Man. I mean, it was definitely big in the '80s. Having Castle Grayskull, having Snake Mountain. I had a good handful of figures. I can't remember all of them. I think Modulok is probably the one I remember the fondest.
Modular,
Just
yeah.
because you could take him apart and put him back together in different ways. So it was pretty cool.
One of my favorite as a kid was actually maybe the worst built one, which was Ram Man.
Yeah.
Ram Man couldn't move his legs, nothing. But I just remember like for hours
Like
again, because maybe
zero
my,
articulation.
right. Maybe my imagination just sucked. But I would
His
just
arms would swivel. His
well,
arms
that's true.
swiveled.
I would just ram him into which was kind of dumb, but I would ram him into the gate of Castle Grayskull. But I'm
Castle
like, wait a
Grayskull,
minute,
yeah.
he's a good guy.
I
He's a
would do
good-
the
you know-
same thing.
Well, in retrospect, I'm thinking, I'm like, hell, he's a good guy. Why is he ramming his own house? I don't know. But maybe Skeletor had taken it over at the time. I don't know. It was a long time ago. My memory lapses.
One of the play sets that I had that I really enjoyed just for the play value of it was I had the Fright Zone, and it had the
Yes.
snake puppet.
I've got the Fright Zone up there, but no way in hell that puppet ever survived. So I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I found mine, and it had just completely like dry rotted.
Yeah,
And
as
it
soon as you
was-
touch it, it's gone.
Do you have any
it
of it
was so
left?
cool because you could, you put it on your hand and you came through the hole and you'd grab the guy that was caught in
Yeah,
the little rock
snake puppet.
trap.
Love it.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I still, like I said, I've got all my Masters displayed up there in the cases, and there's something about those guys. I just really liked a whole lot. Another toy line that I liked a lot, and I've got just a few open toys, and I think I had more in the playset when I was a kid, but I think my mom let my brother play with them, and my brother. And I think they all got gone because I found like 3, and that's Superpowers collection from Kenner. And I don't know if either of you guys had those, but I had the Hall of
did.
Justice and stuff, and I've got a few mint on card up there that I was able to
cool.
get, and there was something about that. It was a very short toy line on it, but I liked it. I thought it was cool.
I think I had, if I remember, I only had a couple. I think I had like Captain America and like, oh no, that's Superpowers. I had like Flash and Superman.
Right.
I think that was the only ones I can remember.
Like
I
you
had
squeeze their
4.
legs or their arms.
Yeah, and their
Yeah.
arms move. Yeah.
I had
didn't
Batman,
have many
Robin,
of those.
Superman, and Green Lantern, and the last one I saw was Green Lantern. I
I guess
found him in a
even back
box.
then, I wasn't very much into DC.
Now, you guys in your anti DC, I don't. I mean, you've been my friends forever, but you have flaws, and
I
this is
told you
obviously the
I'm a
flaw.
Marvel guy. I'm a Marvel
I
guy.
know you are, Captain America. Hush.
But then we had, some more short-lived, toy brands from the '80s. We had Wheeled Warriors,
I've never had those.
Jason the Lightning League. Those.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So they only the toys, the vehicles kind of matched the cartoons, but the figures did not. That was pretty short-lived. They didn't make a whole lot of toys for that. What was something else we recently my son picked up on Facebook Messenger, Sky Commanders
Oh, is that the ones that were
Oh
like on the
yes.
zip lines?
on the zip lines.
Holy
Probably
crap!
the
Yes.
hardest toys to play with ever, because you had to have places to put them because they clamped on everything, and so if you didn't have like a lot of tables and desks and chairs, you just couldn't really play with them.
Jeez.
And so he rented that. I told him that when he first got him. I was like, "You're going to have a hard time playing with this," and he got frustrated. And so we had to sit down
You
and
don't know
find
nothing.
places to hook everything.
You know what? That made me think of something. Another toy line, and that's Silverhawks.
Oh man,
Oh,
that's right now. If you want the Mirage, you're probably going to pay at least 300 or 400 bucks to get a Mirage.
Is that a
Uh,
vehicle?
that's the vehicle. That
Okay.
was their plane, and then and I can't even remember the name of the bad guy vehicle, the one that had like a squid built into it.
Yeah, I don't. I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember.
oh,
I had
That's
one. I had one Silverhawk guy. So.
I've seen it go for like $1,000. I
Oh
mean,
Lord.
it's a fairly rare vehicle. Even the figures, especially over the past probably 15 years, went up insane in prices. Like a single figure is like $100. A
Jeez.
Copper Kid, like 150, and especially if because apparently the copper or the metallic chrome paint that they use rubs off really bad,
very easily.
over 30 years.
Right. Good
So,
grief. Yeah, I
Copper
had
Kid
uh,
one
was
of
good.
so
I
those.
i-
never saw that as a toy.
if
I
you
didn't.
get
I
one
didn't.
that I never had any, that when I was a kid, I only have a couple now just because I found them at toy shows, and I think I only paid like maybe $10 a piece for the ones I have.
Right. Right. But now another vintage line that I know that you collect, Terrence, is
I'll
Mask.
say it, Mask. I love Mask. I love it. So that was the bridge between GI Joe and Transformers.
Absolutely. Wes, did you have any Mask?
I did. I
You
still
did.
have
You
them.
had a gator.
I had a gator.
Nice. Nice.
It's in a little rough shape, but I had the gator. The first one I got was Condor,
Yeah, I
and
don't remember why I know you have a gator.
I,
That's what happens
I
when you
don't.
know people for so long and you're old. You forget why you know stuff. I know you
But
had one, by God.
I had Gator, I had Condor, and then I had Matt Tracker in his car, and that was like the only three that I had.
So, Terrence, I
And
know you've recently gathered a collection of them. Were any of those your originals, or did you have to go out and grab them?
These are all new things I've had to go grab. All my original ones are gone. I think there was a couple of mask pieces left in a random box that my mom had, like a couple pieces of Boulder Hill,
Right.
which is the base that they made. But I ended up getting another base, that I bought, and I sold off, my original pieces that I didn't need anymore.
And those are like knives to the soul, aren't they?
They
When you
are,
realize
they
when
are.
you realize you sold that stuff.
It's like, this was my original piece, and here's a piece of it that the dog chewed on, and I remember that.
Right. I've got a merman
those
like that
childhood traumas.
half its foot gone from that damn dog.
I know it's like, why did you do that? But I mean, I love the mask line. It was, they were so intricate with
Yeah.
the way they transformed. Just all the different springs and levers in them. I mean, that they actually, the way they moved. I mean, it was a very complex process that they did to create the toys.
but
That's why I
but
think
it
you
made
see.
sense if you looked at how the vehicle actually worked.
Oh yeah, it
In
was cool.
in that world, it you're like, this could actually happen.
And then they got
Can I build a
to
motorcycle that
like, I
turns
think
into a
they
helicopter?
they ended up making 3 waves of toys, and I think the third wave was when they ran out
Jump
of
the
stuff to
shark.
do, and you have all these really crazy vehicles that make no sense. The only one that I've got was the Stiletto with Gloria Baker in it. That one I got came from Germany.
Wow.
And actually, it actually got the box for it too,
No
which is
joke.
pretty cool. And it's a Lamborghini. But when its alternate mode is horrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Isn't that the
it
one where
just
the
it
car
just
comes
basically
apart?
it just basically comes apart, and there's little thought into how it works compared to the first vehicles they did, like the Jackhammer and Condor and all those different figures. Now I really wish they would make a new line for the mask figures. They tried a little bit. So I think around the 25th anniversary of GI Joe, they did a matte tracker in three and three
And made
quarter
him
inch
and
and
everybody got
made
all
him a Joe.
excited.
Ah,
Yeah, we thought, oh wow, we're
it's
gonna have this
coming. It's coming.
Joe crossover, and then a couple years back, they did a Revolution comic line. Marvel and Hasbro, I think, did that together,
The
and that was like ROM, Micronauts, Mask, GI Joe, Transformers, and they made this awesome box set which I got for San Diego Comic Con. That's got a figure from each of them in it, and it's basically the same Matt Tracker figure in it, but they changed his race to go along with the new character in the comic book. Otherwise, it was exactly the same figure.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I remember Mask, and I wonder how many helmets were lost.
Oh, tons! And you may
Yeah,
not know this that
that's
they
kind of
made
a
different
thing.
helmets.
I
Like
didn't.
they
there's
from the
variants
first
of the helmets.
generations.
Really?
Yeah, so some the earlier ones have no hole in the top of the heads. The later ones they actually put a slit in the top of the heads. I think it was maybe a choking hazard.
That's what I was about to say. I bet it's a choking hazard. What's funny is you were talking earlier about not having the internet and the marketing of all that stuff. And if you watch, I only learned this because I watched the Toys That Made Us, but that a lot of these toy lines they made a show to sell toys.
30-minute commercial.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, oh
yeah,
yeah. Go
and
watch the the behind the scenes of
yes,
Transformers. I mean, the guy that came up with all the Transformers came up with most of the G1 characters and a little bit of their backstory in a night. Because they had here's these toys they found in Japan, and they're like, hey, we want to do something with them in the states, and they made up new names. And that's why when you look at Japan, like Optimus Prime's name is Big Convoy.
right.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
it's
and that's pretty cool how they did that. And a toy line that we haven't talked about that was the first action figure that I ever got was, of course, Star Wars, the original Star Wars. And that was a big thing for me early on. In our childhood with Star Wars. I mean, I'm sure you guys played with Star Wars.
Oh yeah, Star Wars. I mean, in the 70s going into the 80s. I mean, most of your toys was I think more like standard military.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Cowboys and Indians. Dolls. Kenner really started pushing like those first action figures with Star Wars, and they had really not made action figures to go with a movie like that before, not at that scale.
No,
That's
and
why
I
they
and I
gave George
loved it.
Lucas the all the royalties and stuff on the merchandising.
Yeah, and then I
He
think
laughed all the way to the bank.
Right.
in the toys that made us, I'm trying to remember. Was it who passed up the Star Wars license? Was it Mattel?
I think it was Mattel. I don't really recall, but
And Kenner picked it up.
they kicked them, so they're still doing
Yeah.
it. Uh, and those were some pretty cool toys. When you look back and even you compare them to the latter Joes, they weren't great, but they were good for what we had.
The
Well, we didn't
vehicles
know any better.
were very impressive. The play
Vehicles still
sets
are
and
pretty
vehicles.
cool.
The figures, 5 points articulation, they weren't great. But your imagination filled in the gaps.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you an interesting personal story. The one item of Star Wars that I never got that I really wanted. I wanted an AT-AT, and I wanted an AT-AT, right? Well, I think when they came out, they were very difficult to get. Plus, they were very expensive. So my father actually went down and found a bunch of cardboard boxes and built me an AT-AT out of
Wow,
cardboard
that's cool.
boxes. And it's still at my mom's house. And I've got to get it and bring it here just so nothing happens to it because I played with that thing like it was a real. To me, it was a big, wide chunk of plastic. You know what I mean? And the fact that he made it for me meant a whole lot to me. But I was like, I've got an AT-AT now, right? Because in your imagination, you can make anything that way. It just didn't have sounds, but that was okay because nobody replaced the batteries on their stuff anyway. once it once they
I think as
drained
a
out.
parent, that was a unwritten rule. As a parent, was
Yeah.
that once the batteries died, you don't replace them.
Yeah, you just tell the kid, there's no more batteries for that. You know what I mean?
That does make me wonder, what our parents had to go through to get some of these toys. Because right now, toys are sometimes hard to find. Chad and I both sit on Hasbro's website. The
Yes.
other day,
We were talking, we
uh,
were texting about it. Right there.
right? But because certain toys that come out now are sold out immediately, and eBay I think is good and bad. I think it's made secondary markets explode, and so for anybody that's doing any type of collecting, it makes it very difficult to find things. Whereas finding old stuff, eBay's great, but new stuff makes it really hard to get it at retail.
Freaking scalpers, man.
Oh, I know. So we're talking about the classified line earlier. So the figure that's probably the hottest classified figure right now is Baroness. Retails for $40. I've seen it sell for as much as $160.
And that's ridiculous, man.
And
And that's poor supply from the manufacturer is what that is. I think.
well,
There's something
it's
like that.
actually you can also blame the retailers as well. I mean, because we have because they're the ones that put in the order. They say we want X number of units, and now that we have we used to have Toys R Us. God rest their soul.
Yes,
They're
God,
gone,
yes. Moment
and
of
they were
silence for Toys R Us, yeah.
they're all right.
Okay.
So. Um, and so there were less Toys R Us stores. So I mean, their stock was always going to have more stuff on the shelves. Whereas a Target, I mean, just around us, I mean, we've got what 4 or 5 Targets.
Yeah, something like that.
And imagine that across the country. And they order the same number of units from Hasbro. So of course each store is going to have less, which makes it really hard to find product.
And what's really bad about that is you've got these, nerdy old men like us that want to collect them too, but
Yeah.
which is good. But then you've got some kids that might actually be interested in playing with them, and what you get is is the majority of both of those sides not being able to do any of it.
Exactly.
You can't get it.
Well, I mean, I
That's
really think that they need to decide who their target audience is. When you're making a $20 action figure, parents are probably not going to buy that for their kids.
No, and the way they're set up though, those classified because I've opened them. Those classified line, they're for they're either for posing or leaving in the box because they are very difficult to actually maneuver their joints. They're very very tight, so you've got to be really careful. And I wouldn't want to repose it a bunch of different ways, like a kid would if they were playing with it. because
Oh
I'd be
yeah, I've
afraid
seen
the dang
I've
thing
seen
break.
pictures. I've seen pictures, people posting, broken joints and arms. Like my son, does some of the DC guys, DC Unlimited,
Mm-hmm.
and so we ended up, getting all the whole set that made the Killer Shark build a figure,
Right?
which is super cool, and he liked playing with it, but he broke the joint on the leg just playing with it.
Yeah, and that sucks. But let me take it. Your son likes DC.
He loves DC.
See, I like
He's a
your
huge
boy.
Flash. He's a huge Flash fan,
See,
and he
what's wrong
hates
with
Star
you
Wars.
is what I don't understand.
He hates Star Wars.
Even the
Completely.
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, he's fine with, but like he wouldn't watch Clone Wars with me.
Well, no, actually, my son is the exact same way, Terrance. He loves the Mandalorian, but he hates everything else Star Wars. He just doesn't like it. And I'm like,
I think
are
it
you
was
really my son?
pushed. It might have been pushed too hard because
Could be.
Star Wars was so big for us in the '70s. I mean, that was it was a huge movie franchise, toy franchise, books. I mean, we really got into a lot of Star Wars stuff, And so everybody was like, Terrence likes Star Wars. Well, your son, he must like Star Wars.
And it just it
And I
doesn't,
think
it's not genetic.
it's just no, he just rejected it.
At least you have a son to reject it. I've got daughters, and,
Well,
and they're
there's
just like, whatever.
They can still like it. I mean,
Frozen action figures or something, right?
you dressed your kids up as Starfire and Miss Marvel. I mean, that
Yes.
is
Hey,
I love
they
that.
pick those out themselves. They're little
Hey,
Marvel girls. I mean, they like
trust
DC
me.
superheroes.
Well, trust me on this, Wes. You've exposed those kids to this realm of stuff. I did too, and I've got a 17-year-old, and you know my 17-year-old. And what does she do? She watches The Mandalorian. She has toys in her room right now. She loves Star Wars. She loves superheroes. I mean, she's got a dang Harley Quinn pop hanging from the rearview mirror of her car she drives around. So it's okay. Just because they're a girl, we can still get them.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying because they're girls. It's just Star Wars was that was a big thing growing up, and
Yeah, because it was the biggest movie franchise of our time.
You try to expose them to it, and they're just like,
Yeah,
I mean, where's Elsa?
Well, it holds up very well, I still think, special effects wise. Now that we've probably each watched it, over at 100 times a piece.
Right.
You do see, the flaws in, some of the story and be like, yeah, that is kind of cheesy compared to, movies they can do today, like the level of action and, the fight sequences. You go back and look at Vader and Obi-Wan and like, they really didn't do very much fighting.
Right.
Well, for the original ones, though, it was more about the story.
It was.
Where it was based off the Arthurian legends, and it was more of a story instead of action. Okay, talk for a minute. Action. Talk for a minute. You know.
So, at every episode, Terrance, we do what we affectionately call the Nerdy Old Men Rapid Fire Question Session. And you happen to be today's victim. All right, Wes, I don't know, you got any questions? Because I've got a few right here. You want to go back and forth a little bit?
Yeah, we'll go back and forth.
All right, Terrance, we don't need an explanation from your brain, just a simple answer. Are you ready, sir?
Fire away.
All right, go ahead, Wes, and then I'll go after you.
Okay, Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
What's your favorite item in your collection?
Oh, that's so hard to pick. I would say my signed poster, cast signed poster of the Avengers.
Awesome. G.I. Joe or Cobra?
Cobra.
Yes.
Okay, what's your favorite cartoon? Do I need to narrow it down for your favorite 80s cartoon?
Okay. The Dungeons and Dragons cartoon.
Yes. And
Awesome.
one more, sir. Best toy line ever.
Mask.
I knew you'd say that. I knew it. Hey, man, this has been great. And this has really been fun. And for those of you that actually don't know us, that might be listening to this wherever you are, this is kind of the exact same thing we do every single time we get together. So this was not an uncommon event. This is just us being us. And we're definitely going to have Terrance come back on. We've got a couple other ideas of some ways to use his other expertises, if that's a word, for future episodes.
You said it. It's a word. All words are made up.
By God, this is our podcast, and I will say what I want. That's right. Well, Terrance, we appreciate you being with us, man.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
And please come back. You don't have to ever quit playing with toys and collecting.
And knowing is half the battle.
Cobra! La, 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 la. Yeah.